Forget about Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, let's talk about the Pokemon 2019 RPG game, because that is the Cerebi update that we have today. Speaking to Japanese publication Famitsu, which has a massive 20-page feature on Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, and Pokemon Quest, features an interview with Pokemon Company CEO Ishihara, who provided a few minor tidbits about the upcoming Pokemon game for Nintendo Switch due out in 2019. Now, we've already known about this game. It was pretty much announced in tandem with all the other things for Pokemon Quest, Pokemon Let's Go, like 5 Pokemon games. Not even announced at E3. This was before E3, just kind of talking about Pokemon for over the next year. It's some pretty crazy stuff, and this was one of the announcements that came from it. With Pokemon Quest and Pokemon Let's Go, many new ways to explore the world of Pokemon, trainers can look forward to even more with an all-new Core Series RPG title in development for the second half of 2019, and that's the announcement. New title coming in 2019, so that's what we're going to be looking at today, all the little bits of information that we have with the upcoming Pokemon game that's due next year, as well as the information that we have today. Also, if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like if you like Pokemon news. Things are getting pretty crazy right now, and it's just going to get crazier as E3 comes up. He reconfirmed that this game is due for release in the second half of 2019. Now, this is already interesting in itself, because does that mean, like, we're not going to have to wait a year after Pokemon Let's Go? Is this just kind of like... And that's another thing, like, people are like, oh, what, the Pokemon game needs to come out in 2019 or else it's going to be rushed. But now, is this a rushing scenario where instead of, like, giving us a year, does that mean July? August? Is it going to be 8 months after Pokemon Let's Go? Because these games are being developed in tandem. They're being developed at the same time. So is this a split? Is there more work that went into the initial parts of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee? And then as Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon wrapped up, that team took care of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. And then the traditional Game Freak staff, they kind of shifted over to Pokemon 2019. There's a lot of really interesting stuff that's going to be happening here. So that's kind of what I'm wondering. I'm not saying that's going to be rushed, but it seems like that could still be a fear for the Pokemon Switch game that people were expecting Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee to be. We'll have better graphics than any other prior Pokemon game. Actually, let me redo this. He reconfirmed that the 2019 game will have better graphics than any prior Pokemon game. Now, I also find this very interesting because... Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee are the best graphics we've seen in a Pokemon game, and they look pretty good. Like, I'm more of a fan of this little chibi style, to be honest. Like, I saw it in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I don't think we need the utmost realistic trainers, because Pokemon is a pretty, you know, mystical fantasy game kind of thing going on. But as long as the Pokemon look good, I'm okay with that. And this does have some pretty good looking Pokemon with battles that are very reminiscent of Pokemon Battle Revolution. So that's kind of what I'm wondering, like, are we actually, so if we improve this, does that mean 2019 is going to be that crazy intense graphic Battle Revolution update thing that we're thinking about? That's kind of what I'm interested in seeing. So let's keep going, because there's just so much going on, and that'll be completely new and not like Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. A lot of the announcements that we've seen following this up, they do kind of confirm this is going to be more on the side of Pokemon Sun and Moon, Pokemon X and Y. And then it'll be completely new, have all this, and states it will contain many brand new Pokemon. So Generation 8 confirmed as the new title for Pokemon in 2019. Does this just kill off Pokemon 4th Generation remakes right there? It does seem like the case. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. But also, you know, contain many brand new Pokemon. Maybe it is 4th Generation remakes and then just does more evolutions of existing Pokemon. And I think that could be a really interesting way of tying it in together. Because when it comes to Pokemon Let's Go, this is supposed to integrate people at a slower pace for Pokemon Go into Pokemon Let's Go into the core series games. So because of that, I'm wondering, like, would that be a further integration? Even though like all the other literature that we have about this seems to be targeting, because we have some other interviews, it seems to be like the 2019 game, that's the hardcore player game, that's where everything's going into for that, and they're just going to make it to where anyone that's dedicated, they're going to pick those up. But at the same time, Let's Go trying to integrate to get more people into the new future games of Pokemon. So it is like this really interesting split, that are they going to make it hardcore to satisfy all these people after Let's Go being a not as intense game for all those older fans? Actually, no, but Pokemon Let's Go is made for older fans as well, so it's just more the intense fans, the step above casual fans. How far ahead are they going to push it? Are they still going to keep it introductory to the point where a new fan can still stumble into the new Pokemon game? Kind of like Pokemon X and Y, Pokemon Sun and Moon. These games brought in a lot of players despite their higher complexity compared to Pokemon Let's Go, but new Pokemon are confirmed. Now, if it is a 4th generation remake, again, that kind of gets older players back in a more gradual pace, but it can also introduce new Pokemon because that was kind of the gimmick, that was the theme of the 4th generation. So it'd be pretty cool to see something like that again. And that's kind of like the follow-up. Now, I don't want any discussion about like, oh, but the Pokemon beta data mine from the gold version showing off all these new unreleased baby Pokemon, all these Pokemon that never existed. What if they released those for the 8th generation game? I don't think that's the case because Game Freak Nintendo didn't plan on having that data mine, that for every generation of Pokemon, there's dozens of Pokemon that were probably designed, modeled, playable in the game, and then eventually scrapped completely. So that's just kind of an interesting little update. Pokeshopper, new Pokemon Famitsu spread publication features interview with Ishihara, confirms a new work with new Pokemon to be seen. So this is kind of showing the actual magazine and what it looks like inside, but not having the 2019 little blurb right there. And I'm just kind of like trying to get all the information about this because so little is known about this, but I do want to make a video on the 2019 RPG game. People have been talking about it since it was announced, and I was just hoping for this little bit of extra information. So it does look like the 8th generation. Doesn't necessarily completely debunk a remake, but remake is looking less plausible right now. But then that just means good things. 2020, that's going to be the remake. Maybe an off year in 2021, or maybe we get our Battle Revolution, our Battle Simulator for 2021. 2022 brings us a new game. I mean, Pokemon's good for years, guys. Nintendo Switch means that we're getting main series Pokemon games for a while. And if Let's Go Pikachu has a healthy launch, if Let's Go does really well, then that means this just bought us an extra year on good content. And then the question is, are they going to just have like July, August instead? And then the cycle is going to be really interesting after that. So I'm really excited for all that stuff coming out. And then there's a few more things. So this is the only other information that we had direct from the video game press conference. And I do want to kind of shift things up right here. So let's go and see what Masuda has to say about the games.
New and fresh experience that longtime fans of the series will enjoy.
たくさんの方にプレイしてもらうことを願っています。Nintendo Switch 向けに同時進行で開発中です。
So at Game Freak, we're also hard at work on another all-new core series Pokemon RPG, exclusively for Nintendo Switch. It's being developed simultaneously with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee.
So it is just kind of like, this is where they were saying like, yo, this is the roadmap, this is the future that we have for 2019. And the reason why I added that tidbit at the beginning is because I feel that the biggest takeaway, the thing that Pokemon fans need to understand, is that Let's Go is developed for them. Let's Go is developed for everyone that is a fan of Pokemon. And it's not just a kids game. It's not just trying to pander to Pokemon Go fans. It's not just pandering to the first generation fans. That Masuda has a lot of respect for all the players. That's also shown in this Eurogamer interview, which we're going to touch on later. I know I'm just showing like all these random pieces and kind of bringing it together. That's because the information is so scattered and it's kind of hard to fix it together and figure out what's really going on and how much information we can kind of scrape at this time. But inside this, you know, Masuda says he values all Pokemon fans very well. The new Pokemon fans in Pokemon Sun and Moon, Pokemon X and Y, the old ones from the very early days, as well as even Pokemon Go fans. They all hold a special place for him, and that's how they're getting treated differently with all these game announcements. So that's why I want to add that in there, and then just kind of saying it's going to be like Pokemon Sun and Moon, going to be like Pokemon X and Y. So that's like, it's the more traditional kind of game that we were expecting, and it looks like that because they're doing this step in more of a casual direction, maybe this could be a more intense game, but that's a weird thing. Like, a lot of people are classifying this announcement as a more just competitive announcement, as a more hardcore player announcement, but Pokemon Sun and Moon was already like the most competitive game that we've seen, but had the least hardcore elements compared to like the 4th generation or something. 4th generation took a lot more time, dedication, and grinding to get competitive, so now it's easier, but a lot more in-depth. So it is kind of creating like this weird thing. And then we also have Ishihara just kind of extra confirming a bit of extra information as well.
の XY サンムーンに続くポケットモンスターシリーズの完全新作も Nintendo Switch 向けに開発中です。
And as Mr. Masuda just mentioned, an all-new core series Pokemon RPG that follows in the tradition of Pokemon X and Y and Pokemon Sun and Moon. It's currently in development for Nintendo Switch for a latter half of 2019 release.
And that's pretty much all we have. So, new Pokemon, the plan for 2019, the direction that Pokemon is taking. That's where I kind of want to split off right now. So Joe Merrick has this right here. Game Freak doesn't deal with generations. That's just a fan concept. So just quoting like some random people, I keep saying this. The left is 2015, the right is 2018. So pretty much acknowledging generations for a while. Not to mention press releases stating it, even Masuda mentioning it on his blog. They may not use the word generation, but it's a fan concept. So yeah, can we end this narrative? Pretty much the idea is that, oh, generations are this loose thing, and we can't really classify Pokemon by generation, even though they look like they are segmented by the way the games are handled. But the thing is, they are kind of generational classified, and it's even done officially. Also, the 5th generation website in English said, you know, get ready for a brand new generation of Pokemon. So I don't even think it's that much like a fan term just being adopted. It's kind of like, this is generations. It's kind of how things have always been handled, and it's the best way of classifying things. And I remember this picture. Oh, do I remember this picture. I did videos on this picture. Because you see that map, it's like, oh, 2016. Hey, does that mean we're actually going straight into the 7th generation? Sounds nice. Pretty cool stuff. And then also this, as we moved into the future for X and Y, Pokemon Sun and Moon. And there was even like another classification for 5th generation, like I said. So there's a lot of this stuff going on that's kind of like really tying the generations together, which brings the question of what is the new freaking Pokemon then? Because that's the one. That's going to be the weird thing right here. Received a present, and then it says you'll meet a special Pokemon. This has already been confirmed. I've already done videos on it as well. To be a brand new Pokemon, never before seen. But where does it fall into play? Pokemon Let's Go is not necessarily 7th generation because it's in its own little branch. It's in its own little category. It is introducing Alolan Pokemon, which are 7th generation. We already have Zeraora being introduced really late. Like, Zeraora and a ton of new Pokemon being introduced in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So that leaves this new guy, which maybe we'll see at E3, maybe we'll see July, August, and then are there going to be more? Are there going to be extra new Pokemon adding to Let's Go, or is it just going to be a one-off, and how's it going to play? Is it going to have a generational classification? Because now we know that generations exist. New Pokemon are going to be for the Generation 8 2019 game is what it's looking like. So I guess it's going to come down to Game Freak. What does Game Freak classify this guy as? Is Pokemon Let's Go the precursor to Generation 8, or is it the end of Generation 7? Because I feel like Ultra Sun Ultra Moon was a pretty solid end to Generation 7. Now, I'm treating this kind of like a movie. That when a movie comes out for Pokemon, they tease a new Pokemon sometimes, even in the anime. You see new Pokemon from a future generation before that generation is really even known. Like, the 4th generation was pretty massive on this, because Munchlax was known for years. Buizel came out way before its time, so this also feels like that. It's before its time, before the real announcement, and maybe because of that, it's going to be more on that 8th generation side. So that's kind of where I'm leaning, and it'd be really interesting if this is the first 8th generation Pokemon we get, kind of like how all these other Pokemon were the harbinger of that, even Magearna being announced before Pokemon Sun and Moon was announced. So there's a lot of weird stuff that's going to happen, but now that we have confirmation on the new Pokemon game, things are going to get pretty crazy, and it's looking Gen 8, and that just kind of like builds the future Pokemon from there. And then as for the quick little bits of information to wrap up the video, just quickly follow up on that. I know you can't talk too much about the 2019 RPG, but you can tell me when the discussion was first made to develop that game, as well as the Let's Go games. Did you decide Let's Go first, then the 2019 game? Maybe the decision was to mitigate risk, stuff like that. Masuda, so it wasn't a risk avoiding thing. We know that we wanted to create another Pokemon series, as we call them, for all fans that have really enjoyed the games until now. But the problem, like, I still have a lot of problems with this interview, and my biggest problem is, but I valued Pokemon Sun and Moon like that. I valued Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire like that. I valued all the games like that. If anything, this extra series should have been started with remakes, if not just kind of like confirmed with Heart Gold Soul Silver. I feel with Heart Gold Soul Silver, they could have tried to separate remakes from the more core series in that way, and then as we chug along through these remakes, this could have fell into that place, and that feels a lot better. But now it's like, but this is a Pokemon game for all fans, and then the next Pokemon game in 2019 is a Pokemon game for all fans. But the games we're talking about 2019, we've been working on those for a while. Same with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Part of this is because there's a lot of functionality with Nintendo Switch. We really want players to experience what there is to offer. So kind of making it like your handheld, your 3DS doesn't do as much as the Switch, so making the 2019 core game more like the handhelds, the Game Boy, the DS, the Game Boy Advance, all that stuff. Make it more with that reduced functionality in mind, does kind of expand on what the game is about. Like, you know, you focus on the game and not the gimmicks. Pokemon Let's Go is kind of like, hey, look at that, you can throw a Pokeball, have fun. So that's kind of like what they're doing right here. Really that, looking forward, do you envision where there's two series of Pokemon games, a Let's Go series and a main series like Sun and Moon, or is there going to be two and they're coming together again? He says it's a possibility. Should the games sell really well, obviously a lot of people play them, but right now we're really focusing on development and just getting a lot of people to play the games at first place. So it doesn't look like they're too worried about that, but it seems like they are worried about it, so they're just doing this test, see if it sells, see if the next game sells, see which one does well, and then how it's going to break down from there, which is also why I'm interested in how that development cycle is going to go. We might not have a game in 2020 because they want to wait to see the performance of Let's Go before really cementing how they're going to be developing Pokemon games from here on out. That's going to make things really interesting. So there we go, guys. Pokemon Let's Go looking strong. We have more information about the 2019 game, and now we just get ready for E3. So you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.